Hello and welcome to Careers Talks Live with Max from the Young Project. And today we have a bit of an interesting one. So we are here with Steven Britton. Do you want to say hi, Steven?
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Very good. Nice day today, so I can't complain at all.
Lovely job. So I think this is certainly going to be an interesting one because it's quite an unconventional career that you have, isn't it? It's not like a kind of one that you know about from an early age. It's not something that you kind of is a common career, I don't imagine.
No.
So what exactly is it that you do and what does it mean to do what you do?
Okay, so my actual official role is fertility wellness coach. And what that basically is, there are two different sides of fertility coach. You've got the medical intervention coach, which is basically more of your doctor, your nurses, and that kind of side of where you're looking at IVF. And these are interventions on the medical side. For me, I do as a coach, a wellness coach, is look at the mental and physical side. Um, and that's helping people getting their mental health to a point so they can boost their fertility and improve their balance of hormones, and also help the couple to maintain their actual relationship, because it's a strain of relationship when you're trying for a child and it's not happening. And it becomes a real stress factor, and then anxiety falls in, friends drop away. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but that's what, in a kind of nutshell, is what I do.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a kind of something that people young people specifically probably wouldn't kind of think about as someone being able to do as a job.
Mm.
So like how did you get to doing that? What was like your route into that?
Okay, so I'm going to give you the short version, because
Okay.
the short version is that when I got married and my wife and I, we were looking to have children, we had between 4 and 5 years of struggling to have a child. We had miscarriages on the way, plus we had a stillbirth. So we are experiencing this ourselves. So the experience of it is actually we've gone through. We've had a end of that product experience with three girls, and we've got three grown-up children now who are come through. So we had that experience, but there is another side of the experience where you may not come through and have children. And I've met, and over time, people have had that occasion and are very happy, as much, if not happier, than we are, because it's a way of a state of mind. However, that was my experience, and that became the pathway eventually to what I was doing. What I led to, first of all, was my coaching in health and fitness. I didn't actually think about fertility coach because I never knew what a fertility coach was. As you said, no one hears about a fertility coach. Um, so I was a health coach. I help people fitness and sports, injuries. Eventually, as I got older, when I was in my 40s, I became more of a well-being coach, which is looking after the whole of the physical wellness, not a specific thing where someone says, "Oh, I want to get really fit and be able to lose weight," or "I want to get really fit and be able to be the best football right wing player on the pitch." This was more now, I want to be well. I don't want to have a heart attack when I'm 50, or I want to lose so many pounds, get into that dress or that suit, whatever the person is. But that goes into the next segment where I was going to life coaching, and that's what led to this role. The life coaching is about helping people to get where they need to be, asking the right questions. And then I came across a fertility coach, and that's where my story started. As a fertility coach, I learned about that, and then thought, that's my passion, that's my desire, is that's where I knew I was ready to be. So I wouldn't have been able to do that 20 years ago, and
Mm.
I was ready now for that, and that's why I'm in that role now.
I think that's quite, as we're saying throughout, it's a very, very unique career pathway, that one to, but in a sense, like you've been a coach throughout the whole of your career. So I guess, you know, that was a step up, and then you kind of found what you were interested in. But like, because fertility coaching is quite a niche thing, what qualifications do you have? Like, because obviously, you can't. I presume that you can't do like a, you know, A-level in fertility coaching or GCSE in fertility coaching. I'd imagine that there must be some sort of like qualification that you need in order to be able to do that, or is it just a case of kind of, you know, anyone could be a fertility coach?
Okay. First, to understand what qualifications mean in the academic world. So if you're a scientist and you were doing something with chemicals, you have to have a qualification for that. It's not a desired, it's a necessary thing to have. There are lots of roles in life that you can do without the qualifications, apart from learning experience and building the skills to get there. This role is that kind of thing. So this role was about experience, but also developing the skills to get there. So the experience side and the skills combined together. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So I have a strong skill in intuition. So I have a very good intuition. I use that in my coaching. I understand where someone will be struggling mentally as well as physically. So you can visually see it, but mentally you can understand the intuition and knowing what is the actual issue with that person. So getting into that post, what you want to actually do, it's about understanding the skills it needs to get there. So for a fertility coach, is understanding what the person's biology is and what it needs to be. So if you know the basics of the hormones, how they work, which most children should be taught at school, and I know they're not, because girls go through a lot of different changes and boys are very unaware of that, unless of course they are told. And if you grow up, let's say two different people with sisters, I know I'm going off with a tangent here, but I will come back. If you have sisters and you grow up, a boy grows up with sisters, they will learn a lot more about women in their life than ever before. Those without sisters won't really know anything. And I'll give you a good example. It's not so much now, but a lot of times where women are seen as a unicorn. And that unicorn is like, you know, their hair's perfect, they come out, you know, and that's how they kind of portrayed, and it's not the right thing to picture. So a good experience and skill to have is to understand, first of all, what the woman is going through in respects to her life changes, periods, you know, the periods, the changes of the periods, and what it involves, you know, including the physical side of the pads, the pain, everything. And that's where fertility comes in, because fertility is another, it's not necessarily that woman wants to have children, and we're automatically, as parents, you should say, oh, when you grow up and have your children, so we're putting something physically in their head. So I'm having to work with that already, because they already been bombarded with, I'm having children. And it may not realize, but it wasn't their idea in the first place. It may be something they wanted, but it wasn't their idea in the first place. So to understand that skill in being a fertility coach is the important part. And that anyone can do just by being a little bit more understanding of what someone, it's empathy of how someone is, what they're going through. Qualification wise, it's good to have qualifications to boost your confidence and your client's confidence. The one qualification I would say was a life coaching qualification. You can do that anywhere online. You can do that going to courses, and they are relatively easy to do. And you can develop, and you can do master ones as well. And they will take about from between 6 to 12 weeks to do one of those, depending how much you study. I studied mine every day when I did it. Because I am actually working with well-being, so it's a wellness of them, I like the science of that. to understand the mental health side as well. So I did a Yale University, which was called the Science of Wellbeing. And that gave me an understanding of how to deal more with the well-being side and using the latest technology, it's not technology, the latest skills that you can get a person to get to where you want them to be.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very comprehensive answer to that question. No, that's good. I mean, because I think you kind of gave it a wide background there, and like with coaching, I think it again, it's one of those careers which is quite accessible, but it's not kind of that widely promoted, because when people think of coaching, they think of automatically sports coaches and like people, football clubs and whatever else. But like, as you say, there's a lot broader segments. There's life coaches, you can have wellness coaches, fertility coaches. And I think like the key thing with all of that is to be able to coach someone. It's more of like having the experience to be able to do that. Like, I think that's probably more important than than any qualification. Obviously, qualification gives you the validity to say like, yeah, I can do that, and I'm verified to be able to do that. But I don't know if you would agree and say that, I think you do kind of need some experience before you go into a coaching role.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If you're starting off young, you talk about a journey. A journey will be different for people in a different age. But at the same time, someone can be 40 years old and someone can be 25, and that person at 25 can have a bigger journey than the person who's 40. All depends on what they did and how they grasp that journey. For someone to do that, I would say now, if anyone wants to do like coaching, go and do a life coaching course anyway, because it's good for you just to do work on yourself, because you need to learn about yourself first before you can actually help others. Once you achieve to understand yourself and how to deal with that, how to set goals, what goals really mean, how to deal with sort of the negative impact that things are on yourself. So it could be anxiety, lack of confidence. There are so many things in life coaching that will benefit you. So you don't even need to do that course and think, well, that's going to be my career. It will help you in your career. It will help you in the personal development, as well as taking you down the path that you need to be. Because the biggest thing, and I can't stress this, the most important in my life is understanding that your path is not set by your qualification. Your path is set by your personality and your passion. And many people will say one thing and another about, well, passion is something you will make when you do that role, what you put in. And that's correct. But also, if you don't follow your personality, let's say if you're a person who is an extrovert, naturally an extrovert, likes going out, meeting people and having fun, speaking out a lot, blah, 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 and you become a librarian, that's not a matching role, is it? But the reason you did a librarian is because that's what you studied. You've gone in there and you studied librarian. That's what you were told. You go, oh, librarian, you're a good reader, or you're a good person. You can put things in. You can tell I don't know what a librarian is supposed to do, but a good compartmental person who puts things into place. And there it is. There's your role, and you go, oh, okay. And that's what you're teaching, and not by, it's not your teacher's fault, but they're just seeing your strengths. But personality needs to come first before then the strengths second.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I must admit, on this one, I didn't expect to be getting some life coaching. So, but yeah, no, I think that's
natural.
That's some really good advice. So, we've got a question in the chat saying, are some of the conversations that you have with your clients sometimes upsetting, and how do you cope with that?
Okay, personally, because I have such an empathy with them, I'll either get very emotional with them, and I'll talk about professionalism on that, but I get emotional with them. I cope with it very well because I'm always honored that someone is able to open up to me like that. Never have I ever taken it for granted. but I know that people are very easy, can approach me, and that is my strength, that they trust me with their life if they need to be. But how I cope with it is I am sharing, or they are sharing something that's, even though it's a negative in people's eyes, it's a impact on me as well, because I'm now experiencing something that she's sharing or he is sharing with me, something that he may or she may not have spoken to anybody else but me. So my role here is the responsibility is to ensure that I don't make a mistake by advising, because I'm not here to advise. I'm here to give the right questions. So ask yourself the right questions. Ask yourself, why is this happening? What can you do? And all those kind of things. So to cut it in that short, was it Ali asked that question? Who was that?
No, that was Connie.
Connie. So Connie, it's basically, if you're a person who is very emotional, don't be afraid of it. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I've sat in front of them and I've had tears dropping down my eyes, and it's the only place tears apparently drop from is anyway. But it makes no difference. I'm comfortable with it. Just be comfortable with yourself, and they will then be comfortable in speaking with you.
Yeah, I think your role seems like you have more of an emotional connection with people. Like it's a very much people oriented role, and you kind of get to know people on a deeper level than you would in other jobs, because some jobs it's like you go to work and you have tasks to do, and that is it. When your tasks are done, you can go home. But with yours, it's not so much. Like you get to know people and you kind of learn about them, and it's not so much kind of task driven. It's more like people oriented, isn't it? I think.
True. Yeah.
So would you say that you have any kind of advice or tips for anyone wanting to get into your kind of profession or follow in a similar footsteps to you?
I think probably the best advice is make sure, as I said before, it suits you, that it's something that gives you the buzz. And there's something right now, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, you know what, that really sounds like something I want to do. That's great. That's a start. But then find out, as I said, about yourself. So my advice is, you know, what are the factors in your journey that's going to get you to this role? You don't have to get in the role and think, okay, hang on, I've got to try and have a baby and it's going to be, you know, unsuccessful like that. That doesn't have to happen. What you want to look at is looking at something that excites you. And once it excites you, then you are eager to learn more about it. But be careful that you are the person that's going to fit into that role. As I said before, if you're a person who is very shyness is okay. There's not a problem. I was naturally, and I am shy. I'm still naturally a shy person, but you become more not an actor, but you become more an
extroverted introvert.
Exactly. You know, mine naturally is being an introvert, but I can be an extrovert when I need to be. So it's a bit like an actor, come on, okay, it's an extrovert. So I'm not acting here. I'm not acting with my clients, but there is a point of energy. Without going too deep, the energy is that I will do this for a certain amount of time, but then I need to go back into my box. You know, they just lock me up and put me in there, back in my box and go, ooh, some quiet time, some me time. Where an extrovert naturally don't need that. He'll be happy with someone, go back to the house and there's more people. That's their best time. But I've gone away from that question, what you asked. So yeah, the advice is just to keep yourself on one path and then study that if that is something that suits you.
Yeah, I think that's some good advice. So, I mean, I'm kind of intrigued for this one because, like, I've not had a kind of, I've not, with the people that I've asked this question, I've not had an answer which is like, we do the same thing every day. Like everyone says that their day is different every day, but I'm particularly intrigued as to yours because it must be like different. You must meet different people every day and that sort of thing. So like, what does a typical day look like for you? Is there such thing as a typical day? Probably not.
Okay. The answer actually is going to be different to what you think. So I work for myself. So that's to be understand first of all, I answer that. So I work for myself, but I also work remotely. So I now work from home, and that's been since lockdown, and that's something changed then. But yes, every day is different, but it's not. More days are without a client. And that's because you're spending more time doing your research, you're doing your marketing, and you're doing your networking. And that is the trend for now. Because before, marketing was, you put something in marketing, sorry, would be an advert, pay for an advert, put it out there, wait for your customers to come in, and then you get on with it. But it's about now people, and that's more work for you. And that means my day is about, I meet different people every day, but not necessarily clients. And I meet, like today, chatting with yourselves. I will go out and I will spend my day. Today we've gone out for a walk. I've mentioned earlier about going out for a couple of hour walk with my wife, getting lost, coming back, and not why. As long as I was back by 4 o'clock, I left at 10. I was back by 4. I was okay. So my typical day is literally making sure that I have a plan. Because if my day wakes up without a plan, then I don't have a day started well. And that will be, first of all, is make sure the phone is not the first thing I pick up. Although I did do that this morning, you naughty boy. But the phone is the first thing you don't pick up. You go to, I have a whiteboard, have a plan of what you're going to do in the morning, read that. Then once you've got your plan done, and mine's working out, I work out in my gym. Once I've done that, then I'll pick up the phone and then I'll start my day because I know what I'm going to do. And that's how my day goes.
Interesting. It's very, very organized. But, when you do work for yourself, you have to be. And as you say, the marketing side, I think, is maybe something that goes a bit like untalked about with having your own business, because I think, like, particularly at the start, like, I'm going to make up some percentages here. I don't know how accurate they are, but sure, I would imagine that about like 90% of your, like, once you've started your business, 90% of your time is devoted to marketing, because you need the clients to come in, and then, it's not all showbiz and getting £1 million every day, unfortunately.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I think if I was going to say anything that I've learned, I hated it because hate is a strong word, but I hated it because I resented the fact that I was spending more time doing that than actually learning about my own role, and I had to become I think we're going to title those as entrepreneur. Bunny rabbits coming in. And the entrepreneur coming in is suddenly understanding what that role is. And it's like, well, actually, if you're going to work for yourself, that is who you are. That's what you've got to do. And you've got to know about social media. You've got to understand what social media really is, networking, what networking really is. Because a lot of people think networking is selling to people, and it's not. And there's a lot of about social media where whether you use Instagram, Facebook, they think it's direct again selling. It's not. It's a very different. It's a skill to learn, but it takes time, like you would studying your own. If you went to college or university, it's like you need to learn this. Go to your lecture and you make a few notes and put those down. But it's also it changes. It changes all the time as well. Like LinkedIn is my platform. I call my main platform. And LinkedIn is a professional platform for those who don't know what LinkedIn is. You can't be a professional without being on LinkedIn, I think. So if you're on LinkedIn, you need to understand who your network is, and that network will be your support. as well as your people that will recommend you in the end. Because if they hear someone, Max, we know each other for a little bit now, and you hear someone is struggling with it, you're going to think, I know a guy. And then you go, okay, and it works that way. But the only reason that you may say my name to that person is because you've met me, you've developed a relationship. If it's a one-off meet, then no, it's just like saying, well, I do know there's such and such person, but I can't tell you anything about him or her, depending on, but for me it's him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if anyone's planning to start a business or, wants to be an entrepreneur, get used to marketing, like regardless. I think to be honest, with most roles, like you need a decent knowledge of marketing because, I mean, if you're in sales, you need to market to promote your things. If you're in marketing, that's your job. And if I think it's good to have a good understanding of marketing and kind of what that is. But yeah, so what would you say was like the biggest factor that's helped you in your career so far?
Oh, wow. So the biggest factor that's helped my career, I think, probably not, you're not going to expect, naivety.
Okay.
So I everything that I went for, just to understand, I left school at 15, no qualifications. It was one parent family. I didn't go to college because my couldn't really afford it. Not the college, that was free, but there was no money coming in the house. So I went and worked for a supermarket at the time. So with that in the background, did you ask the strength of the question? Was it about
The biggest thing that's helped you?
Yeah. So my naivety basically is that a lot of people will tell you, well, you should have gone to college for this, you've gone to university for this. I was naive to that point. I was like, I wanted to achieve and get somewhere, but I just thought it would be hard work. So I learned that there were certain things I couldn't do. Qualifications, somebody will come in front of me because of a qualification. It's not so much now, but it was in the past. So my biggest was my naivety. But as I got older, the one that really right now, that for anybody, is speaking up. Speaking up is the biggest one. That's the one that delayed my probably career by 20 years.
Wow.
Because I just
What do you mean by speaking up? Sorry.
So speaking up is like that. Make sure that you let people know you're there. It's very well that you do your job and you do it well, but you still cannot be recognized. This happens a lot more with women than it does with men, because men are very, I'm not going to say very, but they're more natural at boasting. And we will do that. That starts from school. So at school, you'll have a boy that will go into a class and show the teacher the work that they've done, and say, "There you go, sir. Look at the work that I've done." Put it in there, and he'll point it out. Oh, okay, 7 out of 10, whatever it may be. He's happy. He's done the job. Okay, I'm talking in general here. Where the girl will may not show her work until she finds it perfect. She wants it to be a little bit better. And that is something that's just naturally put into them. So the expectations of the girl. And the reason why I'm telling you this now is because speaking up is important, and it's something that we teach for boys and girls. If you speak up and allow people to know you're there and articulate what you want to say and where you are, you will get to where you want to be, because people can't help. They can't avoid you, because you can have that. And I'm going to give you some good examples. You may have someone, let's talk about career steps and say, right, okay, we've got middle management, and we have someone who's doing their work, and we've got someone in there, there's Connie in there, she's working really hard, done her work, she's got a PDF, perfect, she's brilliant, done her job well. Then we've got over here, we've got another girl called Sally. Now Sally over here is doing okay, she's all right, but John out here, the manager, is picking Sally to go step up because he's related to her for whatever reason. So Sally maybe spoke to him every morning, they've had a coffee together, and they're related together. It's about relating. And I know that sounds unfair, but it's life. So if it's about anything, going back to your question, I know I always elaborate, but if it's anything for me now and for anybody else, it's speaking up. Speak up and talk to people. Don't be afraid who they are. You know, have a chat with them. Find something to relate with them. So if it's a boss, relate for something. If he's something or she's something with a sport or a hobby or family, children, anything, just find something. Do your work. Don't just do your job. Find your background, find their background, find out what makes them tick, because that is all part of it. We used to call that in the past, or I used to call it in the past, what we used to call arse licking, kicking someone, kissing
I
someone's
think I have
arse.
to edit that out and for the
Okay.
video.
We used to, and that was something was real, and then you had the others who would tread on you and they would knock you down by telling people that wrong thing. But that's not important. What's important is you speak up and do your thing, do it well, but at the same time let people know that you're doing well, because without that you will fall behind most of the time.
In a way though, I think you could equally say that that is marketing in itself, like that, because it's talking to people, and like it all boils down to having good relationships with other people. Like it's about who you know, and also, as you said, speaking up and kind of making people aware that of the work that you're doing, because you can do all the great work in the world, but if people don't know, it's less likely that you're going to be recognized for the good work, and you're less likely to progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really agree with that. So on the flip side, what would you say was like the biggest obstacle that you faced, and how did you overcome
that? Well, actually the speaking one was my biggest obstacle, but the other biggest obstacle was my own imposter syndrome. And that is something that's a common thing now, is that people know what that is, but at the time there wasn't a label for it, well, for me anyway. So the imposter syndrome is where you don't believe you belong to where you are. When I first, and it's happened in the role that I'm in now, when I first did this as a role, my imposter syndrome kicked in because I was a male. And I said straight away thinking, people naturally think, well, it's going to be a female that would do a fertility coach in that kind of role. That's because that's the way we've been brought up. Everything is, male for this, female for that. But because we were in a change, I became aware that that was happening, and used my skills that I could to develop with that. So the overcome is about imposter syndrome, and that will come in different areas for people. So it's about confidence in actually doing something, not believing in themselves. They either think they're not believing in themselves because they haven't got the skills, not believing themselves, they haven't got the qualification, or someone said something. And that's usually that kind of, they take that on. When you remember something, if you think of something in the past, if someone gives you compliments and one person criticizes you, what do you remember most?
You always remember the criticism.
And this is the problem with this is the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is the part. So it's the same answer. Imposter syndrome is subconscious. So the subconscious is about something that we do in every day, because that's running in. It's like 95% of our thinking comes from the subconscious mind. 75% of that is negative thinking. So we have to understand that's happening, because when we are doing an automatic, say for example, if you're driving, are you in a conscious or subconscious thinking? Because when you're driving, you're in a subconscious thinking, because you're doing it automatically, depending on how long you've been driving. You're doing it automatically. So your subconscious thinking is going on. If you heard someone saying they've driven for 5 miles, go, I can't even remember how I got here. It could be like when they've walked, doesn't have to be drive, that's just an example. It's because they've been thinking about other things. And usually those other things are projecting negativity in front of them. And but once you're aware of that, you become aware of it, and you can answer that by saying, whoa, stop there. I know what you're doing. No. Yeah. And then however you want to do it, yeah, I'm a little bit weird and nutty, but I will stop in the middle of a field. I go, nah, disagree with you. And everyone look, what are you doing? No, it's all right. Just talking to him. And then I'll go on and then project a positive forward thinking for myself. So a forward future. Because if I'm not doing that, then I will allow the subconscious negativity to set in. Is that a long answer to your question again, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. But I mean, it's good that you got the detail in, because it means that it's more contextualized, and it's much better than just having a short answer. So, yeah, I think I've got two more questions, but I think they kind of combine into one, because you may have answered part of it. So one was like, what's the most important lesson that you've learned? But I think that was more like the speaking up thing as well. But so the last one I've got, and then if anyone else has got questions, then we can answer those as well. But is, if you had to do anything again, what would you change, if anything?
Oh, what a change. I think if I did anything again, it probably not to look for, see, this is different now to what it was for me, but not to look for the career ladder. I don't want to say wasted time, because it's still, whatever you do in your journey, you experience it, and that's an experience that you can use for your future. So I'm using that now to explain that what I do again is not think automatically that is my next step. So an example again would be, I was a coach in a leisure center. I was a very good coach, very good feedback. But the next step up from my role was to be a middle manager. And, I was training lifeguards at the time. And I thought that was my automatic role. And I did management course. But I wasn't really enjoying that. And I wasn't enjoying the middle management either. But that's what I did. So what I would do again is actually stick to the coaching. And because I realized that's what I love doing. That's what I'm good at. And not what I thought I was supposed to do, or what the actual system, if you like, tells us is what we're supposed to do. That's basically it, really. Simple, nice and short and simple.
Perfect, love it. So we've got another question in the chat. How do you switch off at the end of the day after dealing with clients' issues and problems?
I don't think I can have a switch off, but I don't have goes back to if it suits you, what the role you're doing. So it's not a stressful role for me. So I could be thinking something related to it, but at the same time, I can very easily switch off in respects to doing other things. So if I have people who are some really sort of horrible things that happened to them in their lifetime, and I'm talking about life coaching here in general, because a life coach, I've life coached different things, teenagers, adults, and stuff. It's not about switching off. It's about being able to live with that and continue doing what you're doing at the same time. So it goes parallel. You're not a robot. You don't just switch off. You just focus on something else. And if it emotionally affects you, eventually, like I'm sure nurses will tell you, when they have these incidents, it's a very shocking incidents that come on to them, but they're not losing the empathy. They're just learning how to control that and understanding that it's an everyday. So they've got used to it, but they have the empathy with the person at the time, but they can walk away and forget about it because it's an everyday occurrence. And I think in a way that is similar to me, but I have a more personal contact with them because they're just with me. They're not in a system or like a hospital. They're just my customer. So I will always be with them, even if they're not my customers anymore. They're still there with me, because if they ever come back and they say, "Oh, hi, do you remember me 2 years ago?" I'm going to remember them. Of course I will. And I'll remember to think about them. But I've not been negatively switched on about them. I'm focused on other things, and then it'll just come back in.
Thank you very much to Steven for coming on. Really appreciate
Welcome.
your time, and it was really useful chat. So the links in the description, as well as all of our social links, and I'll leave a link to Steven's profile on LinkedIn and any other relevant links, so you can access them all down there. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, rating, comment, subscribe, all the rest of it, and we'll see you in the next one.